So I asked and we can still stay for 10 minutes if you like. So I'd like to take few questions which are coming from the attendees. And I'm sorry that I cannot give the floor to the attendees. I know that we have many members of Yambes as well. Our elected president Eleni, which is writing in the chat, and the chair of the Yambes for the fellows. But I'm not sure we can open the microphone. So please put your question in the chat, as many friends have already done, and we will try to answer those questions. Just regarding Lutz, two comments from my direct experience, especially with COVID, is not a matter. I mean, it's a matter of fact that United Nations also declared the emergency for what they called info pandemic. So together with this pandemia, we had to face an info pandemic, an exceeding number of information data such that we could not even judge its quality. So because of that, we were overwhelmed, and sometimes key relevant information was difficult to drive from the point where it was generated exactly to the point where it was needed. Some groups have done particularly well. Clinical engineers through the leadership of Yadin David and Tom Judd, for instance, through the IFMB Clinical Engineering Division, they did a fantastic job because they had what we call in the WHO real-time, real-life systematic review. So they reviewed all the work which was coming out and brought this information to the wider community only if they considered this important, which actually is the reason why Dan Clark got this amazing prize for the work they have done, award, not a prize, from Her Majesty, because of the work that the Nottingham Trust has been doing, helping the other trusts navigating this info pandemic during the moment of huge need, which is during the onset of the first waves of this pandemic. In this regard, several contributions were given, including the humble one that we were giving with Alessia Maccaro in the domain of ethics, because it's true, there is, during a crisis, real need for responsible thinking, responsible action, but sometimes responsible silence. So we should also learn to leave the floor to really experts during a pandemic, because otherwise the good voice get lost into the noise. And this is what we have seen happening in the very start with this do-it-yourself innovation, which resulted in nothing if not overwhelming the work of clinical engineers. Because if you are a clinical engineer, you're responsible in an hospital for taking care of the technology, but suddenly you get things which are not CE market. And now, apart from working on the emergency, you have to spend extra time to assess the quality of those medical devices, those PPE, which are coming out of donation, out of the best intentions, but they are not at the quality which you can grant, and you don't have time to test piece by piece. So apart from responsible thinking, responsible action, we learned from this pandemic there is also a huge need for responsible silence and leave the floor to experts when we don't have enough experience. This is one of the lessons we learned. Now, I see many questions, and I would really like to prioritize that. For instance, Maria Teresa, there is a question from our common friends, Maglaveras, that I am sure you can answer better than me. Nicholas is asking, how do we think we can enable digital transformation of the hospital so that all great achievement of biomedical engineering can be implemented? And since you are leading a project which is called the Hospital of the Future, I am sure that you are more qualified than me to give an answer to Professor Maglaveras.
Okay, thank you very much, dear Leandro. And thank you, Nikos, for your question. There are a lot of different technologies that has to be implemented to get the hospital of the future. We have been working centered in some kind of aspects like the artificial intelligence, cloud computing, mobile health, wearables, telemedicine, and so forth. And of course, all those technologies have to be supporting what we call e-workers, e-robots, and e-locations. In terms of the support of the e-workers, which are all the medical staff, for instance, in the hospital, This support will reduce the burden of repetitive and routine tasks so that workers can focus in making the most important decisions. So this is the best for the patients. And we are working in a project that is centered in this, strongly supported by all these technologies, basic technologies that I have been mentioned, but mainly, for instance, some kind of supports like the e-location in terms of to equip medical facilities with sensors and technologies with high connectivity, and also to be supported by that we call e-robots, for instance, which make us able to automatize logistic and material transport processes and to support in the surgical area and so forth. So there are a lot of digital technologies that will support us in this process. We have to promote the reality, really, and proactive intelligent controls, for instance, in this hospital of the future. And we have been imagining humanoid robots that help us to better understand all the processes for the patients, for instance. And we have to enhance the healthcare process with tools for deep learning, for instance, and data handling and so forth. All of these are aspects in which we have to strongly work in order to build up this hospital of the future.
Thank you, Maria Teresa. Thank you very much for your sharp answer, and thank you, Nikos Maglaveras, for your smart question. Next question, I think Natalie and Will, you can both answer this question. And as you can hear, I live close to an hospital here, because both of you can bring two interesting perspectives on this. This is coming from Olaf, one of our fellow VIAMBES and also a very experienced biomedical engineer in Europe. He asked two questions. First one is, one of the most important health issues is how to prevent people from becoming a patient. For instance, how can we, as biomedical engineer, promote and develop technology for prevention? Very few funding have been provided to that. Now, Will, I guess you can bring the perspective also from patient side, and especially for cardiovascular disease, but also Natalia, I know, for instance, Medtronic is to me an exemplar in that, because Certalis started being very hospital-centered, but is doing a lot to get out of the hospital to work more into prevention, also for cardiovascular, but also for diabetic conditions in this case. Floor is yours. I would say Natalie first.
Yes. Well, I think it's all about showing that you can create value for the patient, both in terms of value for the patient and also improve outcome. And when you do it when you look at it at the data and examples, it is clear. There's clear value. So I think that's a short answer. I don't want to take all the time, but I think if you can show value, you get funding and you'll get support.
Could not agree more. So innovation is there, technology is there. What we miss is probably reimbursement instrument to enable this innovation to be brought on the primary care before patient comes to the hospital. Till the system will be still paid based on DRG, the diagnosis-related groups. That's too late. We don't want people to develop this disease. So we need to change the way in which reimbursement is done. We heard from our host MP so-called the importance of health technology assessment. We heard from Adriana Velasquez, WHO, how important health technology assessment it is. We need to be sure that our policymaker now at national, regional level understand the value of prevention. That's technology is there. We need just the instrument to make it sustainable. Thank you very much. Will?
Yeah, I think the kind of wearable devices is something that is really exciting the patient community, and the fact that they are, even here in the UK, the long-term plan, the National Health Service long-term plan talks about new technologies, wearable devices, and monitoring and taking ownership of your own health is really, really important. And I think that is a message that patients are taking on. And if you don't mind, I'd just add one thing in terms of what that question implies. The second layer to that is around patients are much more aware of follow-up treatment. So in my space, in valvular disease, patients are very much talking about, well, what about my second procedure? This first procedure, I need to make the right choices for 20 years, 30 years, or indeed 40 years ahead. So we're talking valve-in-valve technology. If I take this particular type of device, it means I might be on warfarin for the rest of my life. My preference to avoid that is to take a technology that perhaps is not necessarily, we have the data for longevity of certain devices, but that's a risk I will take. I want to take that. I will trust in the technology. So I think, again, that there's a real kind of that prevention. Also, there's an issue around picking therapies that actually have the flexibility and the technology in there for the future is very important to patients.
Thank you.
I have a short comment. Can I make?
You are
I think a great question by our good friend Olaf. We talk for biomedical engineers always diagnosis, treatment, rehabilitation, treatment planning, and all that. But prevention is an important part. Okay, and when I was at Mass General, Harvard Hospital, we had a program called Be Fit. So making people aware of staying fit, eating right, exercising. And that's where biomedical engineers come into play, is start designing devices for this. And it is already taking place. Look at all the gyms and exercise work going on. And when you have prevention in the spectrum of biomedical engineers, the market size becomes very big. Everybody needs to prevent. It is not only the sick and diseased, everybody. So I think for us, it is really a very bright future. Of course, it means we will all be living, I'm sure Leandro will live more than 150. So then we live longer years, and we need to plan for, what is happening. But in seriousness, the life expectancy is increasing. And so prevention is an important part. And I think we need to start introducing it right in biomedical engineering curriculum, and then also encourage people to design devices in their projects and so on. And it is actually becoming reality. And as I said earlier, the market size is big. When there is money, people will get funding for it. So prevention is important.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Krishna. There is another question that I really like, where I think, Umberto, I'd like to hear your opinion on that. This is from Professor Cerutti, which is not a question, but it's rather an important comment. And let me say hello to Sergio, which is also a very good friend. Sergio is asking how important it is, this discussion, also for medical students. And I think for you, Umberto, you work every day in the hospital setting. So the way I would phrase this question for you, it is how it is important to increase medical doctor knowledge of technology to be sure that together we can do more.
That's a very nice question. As far as I'm concerned, I think that's strategic. You need to have you need to have a new generation of doctors, if you see what I mean, meaning that they need to understand technology, and they need to have the same data sets and items that we usually need to evaluate technology, so we can talk the same language. We've been speaking a lot about HTA as a bridge between scientists and decision makers. Probably it's the time to just keep the two coasts close together. I mean, we need to talk the same language, not finding someone who tries to do the real-time translator between the two, and providing doctors with some technology knowledge, basic technology knowledge. Probably that's one of the issues. I'm not very fond of some experiments that have been going through in Italy regarding kind of merging medicine and engineering in the same faculty and in the same process of studying, because they're really two different sets of knowledge and two different points of view to some extent. But still, you need some the English word doesn't come to my mind. Some convergence to that. To some extent, in my experience, what we've been doing in Milan, in Politecnico di Milan, some years ago when I studied engineering, it was that we went to School of Medicine to learn physiology and some typically medical subjects. I've never seen engineers go to medicine to teach engineering subjects, and the way we look at technology, probably we've come to a point when you need that, because being data, being ICT, being specific technology, we were talking about heart valves, but also we can talk about pacemakers and everything else. I mean, I was looking, I'm a Ferrari fan, of course, but we were looking at the Grand Prix on Sunday. If you don't understand the car, probably you would never get the chance to drive it that fast, and the way the good drivers do that. So that's the same thing for physicians.
Yeah, thank you. Clearly, this does not apply to football, but
no way.
No, but curling, we are getting better. So I agree with you, Umberto, and I agree with you that there is a huge need, and there are now many programs, I must say, also in Italy, where there is more technology taught to medical students. So I come back last week. I was in Pavia, where there is a new program where I gave a module on medical devices to medical doctor students, and similar program is starting at University Campus Biomedica Rome, which I joined last 1st of February. So more and more is coming, obviously with different mindset, with different needs, as you said, but I must say I'm positive also in that, as you are and as Sergio is, because more is coming. There is now clear understanding from both sides that as we go, as you said, very effective, as we go there learning physiology and anatomy, they are coming also to learn more technology. So this is really an exciting period. And now, Lutz, last question is for you. And one of the panelists, I think again, Olaf, was asking, what can we really do in order to facilitate the introduction of innovative solution in the healthcare space? And the question is for you, because I think the bottleneck is also in the lack of understanding that often we have of the other important domains, which are essential for the successful introduction of technologies in healthcare. Floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you. In fact, the approach of our Pandavita project gives at least a suggestion for a solution. In fact, what we want to create is a knowledge platform where, in fact, every expert, but also the citizens understood in certain cases as expert can contribute with their knowledge. And at that moment we have in fact information which people not only can get from a platform but also contribute, because the knowledge exchange is a communicative process, and this in fact creates on the one hand side trust. Of course, the prerequisite is that that these kind of knowledge which is or data which are inside the platform are somehow evaluated, but on the other side it also creates activities, and this is according to me what we need. It is very difficult to when we limit the media-based society only on receiving knowledge. At that moment we have a problem, because at that moment we have an inactive citizens, and this creates the problem that they are very open for every kind of platforms, and the one who are describing certain topics very let's say, attractive are sometimes more believed than the evidence-based information. No? And this is, in fact, what our approach is in Pandovita, and we are now checking in which way we can motivate, increase the voluntary participation in these kind of knowledge processes.
Thank you, Lutz. Thank you very much. In the interest of time, we have to go towards the closure. There is another question from Nikos Maglaveras, which I'm happy to answer. Nikos says here in the question and answer tool is one of the goals of IAMBE since 2003 was to establish a dedicated. Was this achieved? Was not achieved. If I can do some constructive criticism, the question was ill posed. We cannot pretend to have a biomedical engineering panel into the ERC if we first don't understand well how the European institution works. We realized that in order to get a panel into the ERC, and there will be many other institutions, the first thing we had to do was to get biomedical engineering officially recognized as a discipline and profession by the European Commission. There is a database listing all the profession, skills, and field which are officially recognized by the European Commission and therefore European institutions. So we worked with the European Parliament, as we are doing today, since 2016. We achieved this goal with 2 parliamentary questions filed by my friends Nicola Caputo and Lara Comi, former MPs. And together we asked to the Commission, A, why biomedical engineering is not there? This was then accepted because clearly there is no objection. We are a relevant part of the healthcare system. We are now in this list, therefore there is biomedical engineering among the list of skill and profession of the European database of skill and professions. We are now working together with the World Health Organization to achieve the same results with ILO, International Labour Organization, but we achieved this goal too late for getting then a new panel for the Horizon Europe. So we got this great result. It was 2019, I guess. It was too close to the launch and the organization of the new Europe, Horizon Europe. So I am sure that working together in this direction, we can do better, and probably for the next program, you will find a dedicated panel on biomedical engineering. Things have not been holding. I mean, we have got several biomedical engineers chairing relevant panels of the ERC. I can mention Nikita from Athena. I can mention common friends such as Professor Fotiadis from Ioannina. I can mention Paolo Netti from my alma mater in Napoli, as chair of one of the panel of bioengineering. So things are getting there. We need also to learn how to phrase properly questions if we want to get answer from the European institution. And in this case, we have been learning and doing better and better. I see tons of very exciting questions, but we are 40 minutes late, and I am afraid we cannot take more time from the panelists, from the speakers, and from the organizer of this event. So let me close this now today, thanking again Mr. Sokol for the great opportunity he gave us to bring this discussion to the European Parliament. He had to leave, but I know that people from his staff are here. We will take notes from this discussion and present him as a possible consideration for action points for future. I commit myself to organize further meetings as the one we are having today, possibly in person in Brussels, but still open so that we can get huge participation as we did today. We arrived to more than hundreds of attendees. So let me thank all of you. First of all, Professor Krishnan for accepting the invitation to co-chair this event with me, Timo and the IAMBES for supporting this idea, all the panelists for taking this time, particularly for the World Organization friends. As I said before, if we get a war during a pandemic, this can be very tough. And our colleagues at the World Health Organization, they're really working 20 plus hours per day to face this emergency. So let me thank all of you.
Can you ask the other people to come show their beautiful faces so we can take a picture of all who are there now? I see Lubna and Kelly Roy, Take a
Yes,
quick picture.
that's
Yeah.
the speaker view. So the attendees, they cannot see, but the speakers, they can. So we can do that now.
Possible.
Thank you.
Leroy, yes, smile.
Okay, but the speakers, they cannot see this view. They only see once per time. So let me thank also the attendees, because they also took up to 2 hours and there are still few which are joined with us. I saved the chat and the question. We'll try to answer at least in the proper section of IAMBE's website as soon as possible. This webinar has been recorded, will be put on the YouTube channel. And again, you will find there further links as the one that Adriana and April Baller suggested. And we can continue this discussion over there. There is space for question and answer also in those channels. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Thank you very much.
Everyone.